Hey, how's it going? My name is Nigel Chambers of Big Oak Belt Media, and it's a pleasure to talk to you today. Not only are we at New York Comic Con 2023, but the Shinyville Season 2 returns today. Very excited to talk to you about this. I think this is still one of the best kept secrets in terms of horror and comedy mix. I think you all do it in a way that folks should be taking note of. But before we actually get into the season, talking a little bit about the series overall, how are you feeling, man? It's Friday the 13th, it is spooky season, and the show is dropping today.
It feels fantastic. I was saying we finished filming it in December, so it seems so far away.
Yeah.
And after everything that's happened and, and being, out of work and coming back into this, it's a rush.
Yeah.
It's not only the coffee, it's just a rush. I think that airing it now is just, it's a miracle that we get to air on Friday the 13th, that we get to premiere here.
Yeah.
I'm in the beginning, I think people had a hard time putting us in the box.
Yeah.
And are we a comedy? Are we a horror? And I remember I heard from people, it's like, well, it's not scary enough to be a horror, and it's not, and it's not just pure comedy. And it's like, no, people have to find it. And I think this year, especially with the ad campaign, they did such a great job. And, we have such a good cast and the whole team that, we just really leaned into it. And we said, this is our brand, and let people find it. And I think that's also the good thing about, most of the shows I've watched and loved, I've come upon in at least the second season at earliest. So hopefully, that'll be the case here too.
Yeah, absolutely. Never lose your stride. Continue to keep your identity for whatever it is. Don't let anybody marginalize it, because it is one of the best shows on television.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I love the uneasiness. You never know where a joke may pop in there. You never know, a little jump scare. And I think the show also pays good homage to a lot of the classics. There's a lot of imagery in there, little things that you can say oh, I know where that comes from. I know what that is alluding to.
Yes.
So I feel like not only am I appreciative of the craft of the show, but I feel like you all are just appreciative to just comedy and horror in general. So for my first question is, how do you collectively work these different processes?
So from the beginning, I've had half the writers, and in the first season there were only two writers plus me. There's a comedy writer and a horror writer, and you've never seen people who do not gel as much. When the comedy people are talking, the horror people glaze over. When the horror genre people are talking, the comedy people have no idea. And we said it's only in the same room that somehow we're forced to fuse, and whatever comes out, it comes out. And I think I'm learning, and we see every now and again that a comedy person will say something that's scary, and a horror person will say something that's funny, and it's shocking, but it's it's all the same continuum. It's it's surprising people.
Yeah.
And the thing I love about horror, and I'd never done horror before, but I love the classic horrors.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I was talking to Sharon about this idea, I had just seen Hereditary, and I said, let's shoot a comedy like Hereditary to make everybody uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And, the horror writers are constantly giving me new films to watch. I'm constantly giving them new comedies to watch because they have no reference for comedy. But it works out well. It keeps everybody uneasy. And I think, we have so many Easter eggs and so many, there's, even, we start with the seasons kind of based on this, but there's so many props that have been in other movies. There's so many references, and I just like that. And I like that, it's kind of has a 70s feel to it, even though it's anachronistic, but it's everything's very consistent within our world.
Yeah. And, I think for folks who may not be truly leaning into the horror, the references are there, and you just don't know. You can't help those folks, But there's also really new implied horror as well. I remember, I think it's episode 2 of this season. Pat in the sink. First of all, the sink is just completely disgusting. The shot in the sink was amazing, by the way, and pulling out the hair. And I'm just like, that's legitimately one of my biggest fears, that I just didn't know anybody realized that was a thing. So I appreciate stuff like that.
It is. It's very funny. I wanted to do that shot, and I remember we had so many hours of meetings on how to shoot that sink and how to build the sink, and they were like, "We're not going to get it," and I was like, "We're going to get it. We're going to do it." And the great thing about that was you're expecting something to come up from the bottom of the sink, and it doesn't, and that's why I think it's great. But even shooting that and getting the rig of having to pull the hair down was just so scary. And I was saying this before, that came about because last year. I think it was episode 4, we had Pat in the bathroom, and she opens the curtain to the tub, And the network said, "Who was in the tub?" That wasn't Rosemary, because we didn't use Rosemary because we had Mira's stand-in.
Yeah.
So I had to think quick. I said, "Oh, that's going to be something from season 2." I'm like, "What is that?" I said, "You're going to see." So I was like, "Okay, we have to do something with clanking pipes." And then, like, let's do the hair, because that is something so gross, just like the unknown of, like, reaching your hand down there and pulling out. It's so, yes, it's disgusting.
Honestly, I used to hand wash. That's not a thing anymore. I'm a very traditional dishwasher now.
Yes.
Throw it in there. I'm not putting my hands in no submerged water at all.
No. It's I've worked in restaurants also, and you just pulling up something you don't know what end that came out of. It's terrible.
Yeah, and speaking of Pat, the legendary and iconic Courteney, the work here, it's just fascinating from scene to scene. Talking about the writing team, the directing team, working alongside with her. How did you all just create this sort of just magistry between the three components?
So, it's interesting because when we first wrote the show, I didn't write it for Courteney. Courteney actually called me up and said, and I worked with her, 28 years earlier on Friends, and she called me up and she's like, "Hey, Jeff, it's Courteney." I'm like, "Courteney who?" She goes, "Cox." I said, "Last time we spoke, there were no cell phones. How do you have my number?" And she's like, "No, I just read your script. You wrote it for me." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And she said, "I can do this." I said, "What about it?" She said, "This is a story I want to tell." She said, "This is the first character in a long, long time that was written for me. I think it needs to be told. I want to do it." And I said, "I've never seen you do anything like this." I said, "I know you were like a scream queen and you could do anything, but you really want to get dirty like this." And she said, "This is my character." So she's incredible. She has different coaches. She goes through her script so professionally. And I also don't know how. I'm like, how do you remember the lines? For somebody also everybody on our set is always looking for their glasses. They're like, "You're on your face." They're like, "Where's my key?" And she remembers these long scenes, and she's in 40 scenes an episode or something. And she doesn't have to do that, and she just loves it, and she's into it. And you see, I don't know how much of season 2 you've seen, but you see, the transition and the transformation she does, and she is game, man. She is game, and the stuff in the bathtub. I remember that night, she was sick that night, and she's like, "All right, we got." And I was like, let's just not do this. She goes, "No, I'll do one more. And she's surrounded by people. We look at it, look like an intimate scene. There's more people in the room for that bathtub than anything else. And the water's not hot because it's a set. It's not a real bathtub. Spoiler alert, it's not a real bathtub. And she's like, "One more," and she, dips her head up and comes up, and I'm like, let her go. And she was like, afterwards, she was telling me, she's like, "I hope we got that. I think, is that okay?" I was like, "Courteney, please have someone drive you home. Go home and dry off and don't get sick."
Yeah,
she's a sport.
I'm just so fascinated. I was like, I bet you she improvs half of these scenes. She's just really that good. And alongside of Greg, they just create some really magical moments this season.
They are amazing together. I could tell you that she does not improv a lot. The actors don't improv a lot. We go through. She will tell me if she has a problem with a line, and she'll say, "Can I say this?"
Okay.
And that's an incredible thing too. And she. Also, Courteney is she has an empire. She has her own product line. She's been she's directed. And for her to let go and trust the process has been really incredible. And it's been great for both of us. And I said, she's a producer on the show.
Yeah.
I always ask her, I run stuff by her, but she's all in. And it's been a rare pleasure to have somebody. And by the way, in my experience, I've worked with some really great actors.
Yeah.
It's the really great ones that trust you and trust the process, and she's right up there.
Amazing. Well, listen, last question here. As much as I was excited to talk to you, I just want to make sure that there was no weapons on scene. I do trust the Javits Center security. I was a little tempted that you all may bring some axes and whatnot. But glad that we're all in the clear here. But cannot wait for folks to check out season 2. And the last question is, if you had to give a descriptive in terms of what folks can expect for season 2, what would it be?
The unexpected. It is just, I think the story's going to go in a place that you cannot even imagine. Just let your mind go to wherever you think it's going to go, and it's going to go past that.
Amazing. Shining Vale is available on Starz right now today, folks. It's spooky season. It is Friday the 13th. There's no better way to get it kicked off by watching this episode tonight.
Amazing. Thank you
so much.
Thanks.